Hello and welcome to Tale Talk English. Today's story is emotional and full of family conflict, misunderstanding, and forgiveness. It will also help you improve your English listening and vocabulary through simple conversations and real-life emotions. As you listen, try to imagine every scene, every expression, and every feeling. This is the story of a young woman who spent years believing that her stepmother had ruined her family. My name is Emily Carter. I am 25 years old. For many years, I believed that my stepmother was the reason my family fell apart. When people asked me about her, I never had anything nice to say. I told everyone that she had taken my father's attention away from me. I said she came into our lives and changed everything. I believed she was the reason our happy family disappeared. But I was wrong, very wrong. This is the story of how I learned the truth. I grew up in a small town surrounded by green hills and quiet streets. Everyone knew each other. Life was simple there. When I was a child, my family was very happy. My father worked as a mechanic. He spent long hours fixing cars, but he always came home with a smile. My mother was a teacher. She was gentle, patient, and kind. She loved books and flowers. Every evening she read stories to me before bed. I loved those moments. I thought life would always stay the same, but life does not always follow our plans. When I was 11 years old, my mother became sick. At first, nobody seemed worried. The doctor said she needed rest, but weeks became months. Instead of getting better, she became weaker. I remember watching her sit quietly in her chair by the window. She smiled whenever she saw me, but her smile looked different. One evening, my father sat beside me. His eyes were red. "Emily," he said softly, "Mom is very sick." Fear filled my chest. I did not fully understand what was happening, but I knew something was wrong. A few months later, my mother passed away. That day changed everything. The house felt empty. The laughter disappeared. The warmth disappeared. Even the sunlight seemed weaker. My father tried to stay strong for me, but I could see his pain. Sometimes I heard him crying quietly at night. Sometimes I saw him looking at old photographs for hours. For several years, it was just the two of us. We missed my mother every day. Then, one evening, when I was 15 years old, my father sat across from me at the kitchen table. He looked nervous. "There is someone I want you to meet," he said. I frowned. "Who?" He took a deep breath. "Her name is Sarah." I immediately knew what he meant. "Are you dating her?" I asked. He nodded. I felt angry, very angry. It felt like a betrayal. "How could you?" I asked. My father's face fell. "Emily, nobody could ever replace your mother." "But you're trying to replace her," I said. "No," he replied quietly. "I'm trying to move forward." I refused to listen. A week later, I met Sarah. She arrived at our house carrying a homemade pie. She had kind eyes and a warm smile. "Hello, Emily," she said. "It's nice to meet you." I looked at her for a moment, then I walked away without saying a word. That was our first meeting, and unfortunately, things only became worse. Sarah tried hard to be friendly. She asked about school. She remembered my favorite foods. She bought me birthday gifts, but I rejected every effort. If she asked how my day was, I answered with one word. If she tried to help me, I told her to leave me alone. If she smiled at me, I looked away. In my mind, she was the enemy. A year later, my father married her. It was a small wedding. Family members and close friends attended. Everyone seemed happy. Everyone except me. During the celebration, Sarah approached me. "I know this is difficult," she said softly, "but I hope one day we can be friends." I crossed my arms. "We will never be family," I replied. Her smile disappeared. Pain flashed across her face, but she simply nodded. "I understand," she said. After the wedding, Sarah moved into our home. I hated every change. She organized the kitchen, she planted flowers in the garden, she hung new curtains in the living room. To me, it felt like she was erasing my mother's memory. I became even colder toward her. Every kind gesture made me angry. Every smile annoyed me. My father often tried to speak with me. "Sarah cares about you," he said one evening. "No, she doesn't," I answered. "How do you know?" "Because I do." The truth was simple. I did not want to know her. I did not want to understand her. I had already decided who she was. Years passed. I finished school and found a job, but our relationship with Sarah never improved. She remained patient. I remained distant. Then everything changed. One winter morning, I received a phone call while I was at work. It was my father. His voice sounded weak. "Emily, can you come to the hospital?" My heart nearly stopped. "What happened?" "I'll explain when you get here." I rushed to the hospital. When I arrived, I found my father sitting in a hospital bed. Sarah was beside him. She looked exhausted. There were dark circles under her eyes. "What happened?" I asked. My father smiled weakly. "I had some heart problems." I felt sick. Heart problems? Nobody had told me. As the doctor spoke, I learned something shocking. My father had been visiting the hospital for months, and I knew nothing about it. After the appointment, I pulled Sarah aside. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" I asked. She looked uncomfortable. "Your father didn't want you to worry." I stared at her. "Months, Sarah! This has been happening for months." She lowered her eyes. Then she said something unexpected. "I asked him to tell you." "What?" "Many times." I blinked. "You did?" She nodded. "I thought you deserved to know." For a moment, I did not know what to say. That evening, while my father rested, I stayed at the hospital. Sarah remained there too. Hours passed. Late at night, I noticed she was still awake. "Why haven't you gone home?" I asked. She looked surprised. "Someone should stay with him." "You've been here all day, and I'll be here tomorrow too." I stared at her. For the first time, I noticed how tired she looked. For the first time, I saw how much she cared. The next day, my father needed another test. While he was gone, Sarah and I sat together in silence. Then she spoke. "Your father means everything to me." I nodded. "He means everything to me too." She smiled sadly. "I know." For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Then she continued. "Emily, can I tell you something?" I nodded. "When your father and I started dating, he talked about you constantly." I looked at her. "He did?" "Every day." A small smile appeared on her face. "He was so proud of you." I felt my throat tighten. "He told me about your school projects, your favorite books, your dreams." I listened quietly. "He worried about you all the time." Tears filled my eyes. Sarah looked at me gently. "He loved you more than anything." I believed her because I could hear the honesty in her voice. A few days later, my father returned home. His condition improved. The doctors gave him medicine and instructions. Life slowly returned to normal, but something inside me had changed. I started paying attention, really paying attention, and what I saw surprised me. I noticed Sarah waking up early every morning to prepare breakfast. I noticed her organizing my father's medication. I noticed her helping neighbors when they needed assistance. I noticed how patient she was with everyone, especially me. One afternoon, I found an old photo album in the living room. Sarah was sitting nearby. I opened it. Inside were photographs of my mother. I looked at Sarah. "Why do you keep these?" She smiled softly. "Because she was important." I frowned. "You aren't jealous?" Sarah shook her head. "No." She touched one photograph carefully. "She was part of your father's life." Then she looked at me. "And she will always be your mother." Her words hit me harder than anything else. For years, I had convinced myself that Sarah wanted to replace my mother, but that was not true. There was room in my heart for both. That realization changed everything. A few weeks later, I decided to do something difficult. I invited Sarah to have coffee with me. She looked surprised. "Just us?" she asked. I nodded. She smiled. "I'd like that." We spent 2 hours talking, really talking. For the first time, I listened to her story. She told me about her childhood, her dreams, her fears, her mistakes. And slowly, I stopped seeing her as the stepmother. I started seeing her as Sarah, a real person, a kind person, a person who had spent years trying to love me despite my anger. Toward the end of our conversation, I looked down at my cup. There was something I needed to say, something I should have said years earlier. "I'm sorry." Sarah remained silent. I continued. "I was cruel to you." My voice trembled. "I blamed you for things that were never your fault." Tears filled my eyes. "You didn't deserve that." For a moment, Sarah simply looked at me. Then she reached across the table and gently held my hand. "It's okay," she said softly. "No, it's not." She smiled. "You were hurting." I shook my head. "Still, I'm sorry." Her eyes became wet. "Thank you." That moment changed our relationship forever. The walls between us finally began to disappear. Months passed. Then one evening, our family gathered for dinner. My father looked around the table. He seemed happier than I had seen him in years. At one point, he smiled and said something unexpected. "This is all I ever wanted." I looked at him. "What do you mean?" He glanced at Sarah and then at me. "Peace." The room became quiet. Then I reached for Sarah's hand. She looked surprised. I smiled, and for the first time in my life, I called her something new. "Thank you, Mom." Sarah froze. Tears immediately filled her eyes. My father looked shocked. Then he smiled, a huge smile, the kind of smile I had not seen since I was a little girl. Sarah squeezed my hand. Neither of us could speak. We did not need to. Sometimes actions say more than words. Today, when I look back on those years, I feel regret. I regret the pain I caused. I regret the opportunities I missed. But I am also grateful because I learned something important. Love does not replace love. Loving a new person does not mean forgetting someone from the past. My mother will always be my mother. Nothing can change that. And Sarah will always be the woman who showed me patience when I least deserved it. The woman who never gave up on me. The woman who helped our family heal. Families are not perfect. They are built through understanding, forgiveness, and love. Sometimes the people we resist the most are the people who care about us the most. And sometimes all it takes is an open heart to finally see the truth. That is the story of how I learned that my stepmother was never the villain. She was simply one of the kindest people I have ever known. and I am grateful every day that she became part of my family. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this story and want to improve your English listening skills through emotional and meaningful stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join our learning community. See you in the next story.